Hello and welcome to episode 8 of our series Back to Basics, Sustainability. Now that we have defined sustainability, now that we have looked about the resources, the climate change, the social impacts, it's important to understand that we need regulation. We need regulations to help us live the present and of course the future if we want to transmit this wonderful planet to the future generations. Let's dive into this subject now. From Wikipedia, regulation is the management of complex systems according to a set of rules and trends. Regulation in the social, political, psychological, and economic domains can take many forms. Legal restrictions promulgated by a government authority, contractual obligations, for instance, contracts between insurers and their insureds, social regulations, meaning norms, co-regulation, third-party regulation, certification, accreditation, or market regulation. So far, in this season of Back to Basics videos, we've seen the problems that we are facing: energy, resources, pollution, etc. How can we address these challenges? By defining goals, standards, and regulations, we participate to solve these problems. In this episode, we will look at these three aspects, which are very complementary. In the previous video of sustainability, we introduced the 17 United Nations goals for a sustainable development. They are an engagement of countries to act by 2030. Other initiatives have arisen, developed by non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and companies, and standards and certifications have been created. Ultimately, governments and governmental organizations have also started creating regulations, Europe, Australia, etc., that will effectively impose changes in the way people and companies act. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015, provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now and into the future. And its heart are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, which are an urgent call for action by all countries, developed and developing, in a global partnership. They recognize that ending poverty and other deprivations must go hand in hand with strategies that improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, all while tackling climate change and working to preserve our oceans and forests. The United Nations provides substantive support and capacity building for the SDGs and their related thematic issues, including water, energy, climate, oceans, urbanization, transport, science and technology, the Global Sustainable Development Report, GSDR partnerships, and the Small Island Developing States. In order to make the 2030 Agenda a reality, broad ownership of the SDGs must translate into a strong commitment by all stakeholders to implement those goals. Concrete actions have taken place. Education on the topic is also a key priority. SDGaction.org provides content to better understand what we collectively can achieve. Initiatives about sustainability are also driven by companies. Sustainability standards and certification are voluntary guidelines used by producers, manufacturers, traders, retailers, and service providers to demonstrate their commitment to good environmental, social, ethical, and food safety practices. There are over 400 such standards across the world. The trend started in the late 1980s and 1990s with the introduction of eco-labels and standards of organic food and other products. Most standards refer to the triple bottom line of environmental quality, social equity, and economic prosperity. A standard is normally developed by a broad range of stakeholders and experts in a particular sector and includes a set of practices or criteria for how a crop should be sustainably grown or a resource should be ethically harvested. This might cover, for instance, responsible fishing practices that do not endanger marine biodiversity or respect for human rights, and the payment of fair wages on a coffee or tea plantation. Normally, sustainability standards are accompanied by a verification process, often referred to as certification, to evaluate that an enterprise complies with the standard, as well as the traceability process for certified products to be sold along the supply chain, often resulting in a consumer-facing label. A leading example of a consumer standard is the Fair Trade movement, established in 1997, administered by FLO International and exhibiting huge sales growth around the world for ethically sourced produce. An example of a B2B standard that has grown tremendously in the past years is the Forest Stewardship Council Standard, FSC, for forest products made from sustainability harvested trees. This was established in 1993. The number of sustainability standards grows continuously. Currently, there are around 264 active voluntary sustainability standards, VSS, according to the International Trade Center Standards Map, in 194 countries and 15 sectors, and about 457 eco-labels, according to the Eco-Label Index, in 199 countries and 25 industry sectors. More binding than standards and addressing a much wider audience are regulations imposed and enforced by governmental organizations. Let's use the European Union as an example of developing new regulations for sustainability. The European Union is issuing regulations that impact directly European citizens. The European Climate Law sets a legally binding target of net zero greenhouse gas emission by 2050. The EU institutions and the member states are bound to take the necessary measures at EU and national level to meet the target, taking into account the importance of promoting fairness and solidarity among member states. An example is the ban of selling combustion engine cars by 2035. That is cool, but it means it needs to be measured. Therefore, the EU is addressing companies through a set of regulations. The CSRD, the EU taxonomy, the SFOR, and the recommendations TCFD. Ouch, all those acronyms. Let's take a closer look at them. The Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, requires companies to publish regular reports on their environmental and social impact activities. It defines a common reporting framework that will be applied from 2025 onwards. The EU taxonomy is a classification system of environmentally sustainable economic activities. It has been created to help investors make green investments. 6 environmental objectives have been identified: climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, the sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources, the transition to a circular economy, pollution prevention and control, and finally the protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. The taxonomy specifies how each activity can contribute to each objective. It has to be included into financial reports. The Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, SFDR. Financial activities have also been subject to a specific regulation. It requires financial institutions to report on sustainability risk of financial products. And finally, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, TCFD recommendations. During these first 8 episodes of the 3rd season of Back to Basics videos, we have just listed the resources, their usages, and the problems associated with these same resources, but also we saw the potential changes to be made in the way we consume them, so that we can transmit this wonderful planet Earth to our children, to the future generations. We also saw at the end of each episode how SAP's business technology platform can address these primary concerns of storing data, because ultimately data is everywhere, data is produced en masse at every possible level, and how to use data to understand and anticipate our consumption of these diverse resources that enable human beings to live. We discussed data management and storage topics, such as governance, security, movements, database, data lakes, data warehouses, etc., in detail in Season 1 of Back to Basics. We introduced data usage topics, such as reporting, analysis, dashboards, predictive, etc., in Season 2. It's still time to take a look for a refresher. In the next 5 episodes, we will detail SAP's solution, all based on the business technology platform, which enable organizations of all sizes to understand sustainability to the best of their ability to comply with the rules, as seen in this episode, but also to be able to actively prepare for the changes needed to last for the long term. Let's not forget that in the business technology platform, of course, there is the technology platform component, but there's mostly the word business. Now that we know a little bit more about the regulations and why they are here, let me thank you for watching us today, and I want to see you next time on the next episode, where we will enter the sustainability in the companies. And the first episode will be all about carbon reporting. We will of course introduce some definitions, and then we will go further in the next episodes as well. Once again, thank you and see you soon.